People have been asking, reinforce. What do you think are the best tank perks? Well, guess what? I'm about to tell you. All right, Sigma. Kinetic cycle. Absorbing projectiles with kinetic grasp also reduces accretion cooldown. This is the one that I usually pick. I played a lot of Sigma. It's actually the hero that I've played the most so far this season. And sometimes, I mean, this will speed up, but like you get like the half the cooldown. Sometimes I've almost got like a free accretion because I absorb so many projectiles, especially if you're playing these pokier kind of compositions that Sigma is prone to be in sometimes, where it's like Circuit Real or whatever. You're getting free accretions throughout the game. And I think it's quite useful, especially if you're in like a Sigma versus Sigma mirror, then I like having the accretion uptime. Moving on, we got Hyper Strike, which is everyone's favorite perk right now, but I much prefer the levitation one. I think it's very consistent value. And unless we see pros starting to break the use of Hyper Strike, then I think levitation will be the go-to one. And so I actually have some clips here. I just wanted to show you. I played a root game the other day, and you can levitate on the high ground here. I think root is a great example of a map where having access to these high grounds and using levitate, it's actually going to be really useful for you as a Sigma player, because it means you can off angle, and it means that you can really utilize high grounds to be a nuisance to the enemy team and be more oppressive. And there are a lot of maps you can actually do this. Route 66 I think is a good example of a map where it's easy to access these high grounds, and it makes you more annoying to deal with as a hero. And so I really like this perk to use it on a lot of maps where you can use this to our advantage and make you harder to get rid of. Whereas Sigma, it's a major perk. For Zarya, I'll just go to Zarya. The jump ups is your minor perk, and so you have access to it way sooner in the game, where your secondary fire self knockback is increased by 75%. And there's a similar factor here where if you're Zarya and on some of these maps, you can make yourself really difficult to deal with. That is going to be really good. So yesterday I had a VOD here as well where I'm playing Zarya, and we're over on Esperanza, and I picked Zarya pretty late here. But then as we get here, I'm gonna mess up a couple of jumps, so it'll look stupid. But like just the fact you can get up on these high grounds quite effortlessly, not like I did there, that was not effortless. This is going to be really strong on some maps where you can just get access to the high ground, and then you can utilize that. You can deal a lot of damage, because like if you have some charges of Zarya, it's a lot of damage raining down onto the enemy team. So this is a pretty like fundamental aspect of gameplay, like using high grounds, using off angles. And so if you feel confident to use these high grounds and off angles to your advantage, you can get a lot of value out of these perks that emphasize the vertical mobility of both Sigma and Zarya. And so those are the perks I would pick most of the time, at least, you know, as you get to like the higher level kind of games and you know how to use high grounds and you know how to use off angles to your advantage. And while we're on Zarya, Spotter, using your protected barrier activates ally health regeneration, increases their movement speed by 15%. So I think this is a really consistent perk, and you get some good value out of it the whole game. And so I'd most of the time select the Spotter one. But then if you're playing a composition where for whatever reason it doesn't really make sense and you get pretty limited value out of it, then I would pick the energy lance, and then you get some extra damage done. And you know, there's some niche situations where maybe you're like getting splash damage, you know, narrow hallways or stuff like that. But most of the time I'd pick Spotter because it just makes more sense for Zarya.